Over here so I can see. All right, good morning, Baltimore, and welcome back to our virtual conversation over coffees. My name is Kristen Schrader. I'm the Business Development Manager with Harkins Builders. We're a construction manager out of Columbia, Maryland, with regional offices in Wayne, Pennsylvania, and Charlotte, North Carolina. And I'm also your 2020 Crew Board President. I want to take a moment to thank our annual sponsors. Again, we could not do this year without your support. Our gold sponsors, NJLL, silver sponsors, Absolute Services Industries, Cone Redneck, Copt, Cram & Graham, Badova Engineering, Rosenberg, Martin & Greenberg, the Brick Companies, and the Rockefeller Group. Our bronze sponsors, All Safe Elevator Inspections, Sonero, Simply Engage, Gradeline Construction Company, Howard Bank, Infinity Environmental, Katz Abosch, Land Care, Merritt Companies, Mona Electric Group, My Cleaning Service, Omega Fire and Life Safety, Penza Bailey Architects, Price Modern, Rupert Landscape, Tyson Krupp Elevator, Unlimited Restoration, VSC Fire and Security, and Whiteford, Taylor, and Preston. So thank you again to our sponsors and to all of our sponsor company members who joined us today. A few administrative notes. This is being recorded and will be put up on our YouTube channel for anybody to view afterwards. And before I announce our panelists today, I'd like to invite Renee to make a few announcements regarding our outreach committee.
Hi, good morning, everyone. So my sister's place in Baltimore is the longest serving women's day shelter and resource center for women experiencing homelessness and poverty. And we have partnered with them for the last 3 years. And during the pandemic, they really need our help more than ever to continue serving the women of Baltimore that are in need. So we set up on the CREWBaltimore website under the philanthropy tab a Amazon wish list link where you can go in and hit the Amazon wish list button, and it will take you to the wish list that has the items that they are most in need of right now. And many of these items are like really inexpensive. So I just would ask that each of you would go make a note now, write it down right now, that at the end of the call, you will go to the Amazon wish list and donate an item. It ships directly to my sister's place. You can note it as a gift, put a little note in there, a note of encouragement to them. And if we each donate even just one item, we can make a really big difference for this organization and the women that they serve. So thank you so much for that.
Awesome. Thank you, Renee. And Kelsey was kind enough to post those links in the chat box.
Oh, great.
So you don't have to go anywhere else.
It's so easy.
Anyway, thank you for that. And I encourage you all to support my sister's place as we continue to do year after year after year. So today's panel, we are going to discuss modular and off-site construction. And our panelists today are Karen Holland, Associate Sustainability and Lean Practitioner at Haley & Aldrich, and Jerry Smalley, CEO and co-founder of Blueprint Robotics. So welcome both of you, and I will turn it over to you and just give me a little cue when you want me to put the slides up.
Right, I was on mute. I was giving my whole spiel and realized no one could hear me. Kelsey, you can get the slides up. I was going to give a very brief introduction to how I ended up in the prefab space, and then I'm going to give a very, very, very high level introduction to what prefab actually is, and then I'll hand it over to Jerry, who's going to talk more about why this is so important. So those of you who know Haley & Aldrich might be wondering why I've gone down the route of prefab consulting. Haley & Aldrich is an environmental and engineering firm, and I've been a lean practitioner. We have a small group of lean practitioners for the last 10 years. I also lead our resiliency practice, and now you must be wondering, why the hell is someone working on resiliency and lean going into prefab? Well, and we'll touch on this today, there's a lot of synergies between the work I was doing and this actually very natural shift into the offsite construction world. And we'll touch upon these. So my role for the last year or so has been leading this practice, this offsite construction practice, and I'm really looking forward to the conversation today. So at a high level, what is offsite construction or prefabrication? it's really thinking about planning, design, fabrication, assembly, all of those building elements and those elements of the building life cycle, and doing those at a location other than the final point of assembly on the construction site. And so if you go to the next slide, Kelsey, Kristen, sorry. People often think of prefabrication very much at the volumetric modular standpoint, but actually there's a whole spectrum. So you can get the full-blown volumetric, then you can do panels, and Jerry will talk more about that side of the spectrum, I think, Jerry. But you can also do single trade assemblies at the MEP trade level as well. So again, anything that's constructed off-site, assembled off-site before you go onto the construction site can be classified as prefabrication, and there is this long continuum. Any questions before we dive into why Jerry and I especially are so passionate about prefabrication? So if you go to the next slide, Kristen, I think I'll just leave it at this. What work conditions are more preferable? The slide, the picture to the left or the picture to the right? Nice. I certainly know where I would prefer to work. And with that, I will hand it over to Jerry, who's going to talk more about what are the benefits of prefab.
So I think, good morning, everyone. Off-site construction is a pretty popular topic at the moment, and there are several important reasons for that, or at least we believe. As we talk to our customers and our associates, challenges, I think, as an industry, we would acknowledge are front and center to building today. I think as a people, we haven't done a good job on training, but certainly finding a good plumber, finding a good mechanical tech, finding a good electrician, those are all challenges that the entire industry, from design engineering through construction, face today. I think also we are clearly facing, for I believe all the right reasons, a more demanding regulatory environment. Again, as an industry, I believe we've built a lot of bad buildings. And I think as we look forward, we look at sustainability, we look at environmental concerns, the quality of the building has to improve, and the regulatory environment is beginning to reflect that. And I think it's fair to expect that it will only reflect further on a going forward basis. Quality concerns are rampant, from whether you're an owner, a developer, a contractor, or part of a design team. We as a group see the topic of quality being an ever more present concern for the building industry. And lastly, waste. No industry in the world can exist with the level of waste that is experienced in the construction industry. Depending on who you talk to, waste can be from 10% to 30% on a typical construction site. No one, automotive, medical, aerospace, no one exists with that level of waste. So as you think about why off-site construction, we see from a macro perspective, those are the reasons. Blueprint, its value proposition is pretty straightforward. We can provide cost certainty much earlier in the design construction process than typical trades. One reason for that is that we have a very concise scope of work. We control the labor. We control the procurement on a more sophisticated basis, and as a consequence, provide cost certainty. If you're a developer, if you're concerned about cost, if you're trying to underwrite, early definition of cost certainty is a big deal. Secondly, our value proposition brings quality. I'm very comfortable in saying you can't build the book we build. We've given 700 plus tours of our plant. A couple of you have been here. I can show you a wall that we build, and you're not going to be able to do it. We cheat. We use robots. It's just simple. Lastly, it's speed. In our scope of work, spans from the framing through the MEP rough end. That scope of work can be reduced by 40 using the blueprint method. So speed translates to dollars, translates to certainty, and for a developer owner, gets the first dollar of revenue into the pro forma much more quickly. So that's our value proposition. What is it we do at Blueprint? Well, first of all, we only sell to developers, builder owners, general contractors. Quality customers are extremely important to us. Ours is very much a specific shop drawing process. So it takes a quality GC or a quality construction manager, quality developer to be at the table with us. That's when the best results come to play. Our product is multifamily, and for our purposes, we include townhomes in that. We can build both type 3 and type 5. As long as wood is your medium, then we build it. But most importantly, we're building your project. So the role of the architect, your architect, I'm speaking to a developer, the developer's structural engineer, the developer's mechanical electrical engineer, and their fire protection engineer perform their traditional functions. We only coach them into a method. When I say coach, we're going to introduce, we use some different materials. Our top plate and our bottom plate are engineered lumber. We use a much more precise stud. It's a finger jointed stud. The reason we do this is because dimensional integrity is hugely important to us. When we pull a diagonal measurement on a 40-foot length of wall, we have to be within 5 millimeters. That's not exactly a concept that's broadly experienced in the construction industry. So we need higher quality materials. Those materials have different characteristics. So we need to coach the structural engineer and the architect into that. We're also have a much higher efficiency focus. What are the steps you can make to allow for improved industrialization of the process? But those are simple things. Common wall heights, very vertical stacks. So at the end of the day, we are not disrupting the design, but rather we're just coaching the traditional design engineering team to our method. And also importantly is that if someplace along the line one decides that they don't want to proceed with the blueprint method, you haven't done anything that has locked you into our space. You simply can go to a traditional route if you care to do so. We'd be saying you'd made a mistake, but other than that, you can proceed. At the end of the day, our process is a very much just a detailed shop drawing process, much like a steel fabricator or a precast fabricator. The only difference is our scope is larger. We span from the structure all the way through the MEP, and I'll get into the detail on that. Unlike volumetric modular, we do not have any design limitations. In other words, it's the material, it's the lumber that defines the project result. So if an 18-inch joist can span 20 feet, we can span 20 feet. If it can, for a particular design, if it can span 24, we can span 24. It's the material that's the limitation, not the method. And lastly, we're agnostic as to foundation type. We can build slab on grade, we can build on a podium, we can build on piers, we can build on basement, a crawl space, it doesn't matter. Again, if lumber is the medium, if lumber can do it, we can do it. The blueprint scope is rather broad. From the we include in our method all of the structure, that is to say exterior walls, interior walls, floor and roof systems. It's a complete structural package. Those walls are delivered with exterior and interior exterior windows and doors installed. We're going to push our customers to a couple of vendors where we have better price points. But if you want a Zola window, we'll bring a Zola window. It is clearly up to the design team to specify that. We're going to bring a water resistant barrier. We're not necessarily Tyvek fans, but we use more Sega products. They happen to be vapor open products, which we think brings a higher level of performance, but we'll build that specifies. We bring the entire mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and fire protection spec. That is to say that we'll actually come to the job site, do the groundworks. We've installed the lion's share of the rough in for the mechanical systems, for the electrical systems, for the plumbing systems, and for the fire protection systems in the walls that we bring to the site. And then we'll return at the end of the project to actually trim out and commission those systems. So with Blueprint, you do not need a plumber, you don't need an electrician, you don't need a mechanical subcontractor, nor do you need a fire protection subcontractor. And all of that represents somewhere between 55 and 65% of the vertical build over the foundation. So we are clearly a prime sub on any project. That brings, and so when we bring this cost certainty and speed to that spectrum, it's significant to the ownership of the project. So how do we do that? So first of all, and maybe you should, next slide here, please, Kristen. We construct the project digitally. This is after the project architect and the project structural engineer and the project MEP engineer have resolved their systems for the building. We take the project at Revit either 400 or 300 and build the entire building virtually. All of the clash detection resolution is accomplished in that process. It's extremely important that be done, and we think we're pretty good at doing that. And this is the key. At this juncture, we know the building as well as it can be known. The resolution of any intersections of these systems is understood, resolved by the project team, not just by us, but rather the inclusion. We use a software called Revitso, which is a information sharing software where each of the architect, the project architect, the project structural engineer, and MEP engineer works with Blueprint to resolve any conflicts. Once it's resolved, we have really removed what I jokingly refer to as the liberal embellishment that can go on in the field to alter a system. What we digitally prescribe is what gets built, and that's the biggest step. A lot of organizations spend a lot of time in BIM to make these resolutions. At the end of the day, it's still interpreted by a field set of, or a disparate set of subcontractors. With us, the model drives the machines and therefore drives the result. What comes out of the build is what gets built. With that in place, while the design team is pursuing the building permit in the local jurisdiction, we start to translate the building model through using a software called Dietrix to drive the machines to build the product. We also engage then in a procurement system that provides for just-in-time delivery to the plant for the production of the building. We manufacture just-in-time for the installation. The plant outruns everything. It's faster than our installation crews can put the building up. So we are not fans of building in advance. We want to literally build on Thursday what's going to get installed on Monday. We then come to the job site. We bring our own crane, our own material handling equipment. We have our own transportation systems, and we install on the project's, our customer's foundation. We do check the foundation to ensure that it digitally check it to ensure that it is built to the standards that were anticipated in the structural drawings, but that's not an onerous detail. We do know where to buy grout. Once the frame is up, and you may have seen an article in the Washington Post a couple of weeks ago where we installed about a 30,000 square foot building in 18 days. We then make the interconnection between the panels for the MEP system, and then call for the traditional MEP trade inspections. So our inspection protocols are just like they would be traditionally. Same kind of trade permit, same kind of inspections in the field. The inside of our walls are open, so we those inspections, and then we turn it over to our customer for insulation, drywall, and construction of the finishes. Once the finishes are in place, that is, say, the cabinetry, the tile work, etc., we return to the project, install the plumbing trim, the electrical trim, the fire protection trim, and commission the HVAC system. So it's, at the end of the day, it's a highly precise, predictable process that delivers with speed and quality that is otherwise difficult to achieve. And we do it, we think, at a market price that makes sense in the market. Our trade area today extends from Northern Virginia to Boston, but our principal locations of operations are the Metro DC and Metro Philadelphia. What questions might I answer? Gives you, that last slide gives you a sense of installation.
I have a couple questions if I can say some stuff here. Thanks guys for the presentation, by the way. It's great stuff. It's exciting to see everything that's happening in the prefab world. I come from an MEP heavy prefab background, and just to see everything coming together is great. Jerry, for you, a couple questions. So when it comes to, I think the good thing about the coordination with your firm is it's a one-stop shop where you have control of everything, and that's what's going to make it efficient and clean, right? When it comes to a wood building and you have trusses, wood trusses, are you working directly with a truss manufacturer at that point, or are you guys designing the trusses and engineering them in-house while also modeling them and then getting everything coordinated?
No, we procure first of all, we're not a fan of TGIs for our system. We tend to go to open trusses. We use a lot of girder trusses just as efficiency. And we procure those from the higher quality truss manufacturers. So our relationship with the truss manufacturers is much like anyone's relationship with them. They engineer the product, they stamp and seal the truss shop drawings, and then deliver them to our plant, and they are included then in our process.
Great. And one more question for you. We are also a Revisto user here. And one of the things we tend to struggle with is really getting full attention of a design team. And you don't have to, I don't know if you have the answer to this, but with your experience working hand in hand with design teams, especially through Revisto and collaborating, have they been pretty open to this idea of just this back and forth conversation? If it's not, do you have to change the language in the contract to be some kind of design assist at that point? Like, how does that work? Because there tends to be some pushback from the design team, right? If we start pulling up a lot of these details and we're starting to change things on the fly.
So I think it goes back to the point is that we need total buy-in of the detailed shop drawing process from the very beginning, both with the developer, building owner, and ultimately contract with the GC. But the developer owner has to encourage their design team for full participation, because we're resolving, as a matter of requirement, all of those issues that are generally found about 3 weeks into the frame in a traditional process. So do our project managers, are they pesky on Revizzo? Yeah, I bet they are. I think it's important that they be that. But it takes a collaborative team. If members of such a team are resistive to the process, it does not work well. And that for us means that we actually picked a bad customer.
Patrick, you bring up a very important point in terms of getting, and I know Jerry, you touched on this as well, getting the whole, the whole supply chain effectively on board. So if you have a designer who's not on board, prefab's probably not going to work, or off-site construction's not going to work. If you do it the traditional stick build way, Jerry, but you have some trades, or a GC and some trades who are really on board, but others aren't, you're not going to be as successful. So the work I'm doing is more kind of on the other side of the chain, is really working with trades and GCs to incorporate that way of thinking. And what we're finding, actually, a lot of the barriers we're seeing is actually the design phase. So again, if we can have all the the great prefab philosophy behind us once the building is in construction, but if it's not built for offsite, it's not gonna work. So I think really, the ultimate where we want to be is where Jerry is, but there's a lot of work that can be done individually in pockets to bring the whole supply chain up to speed as well. Well, up to speed is not the right word. A change in philosophy.
Sure. Karen, let me ask you something too. So in the MEP world, there's a lot of subcontractors, trade partners that are all about prefabrication. They have a great warehouse, a great manufacturing setup, but that typically is based on the job type, right? So in the government world, a lot of that, some like coordination and model-based stuff is required, and then prefab can come with that. But we're looking at a lot of wood construction, right? And multifamily worlds, and I think I see a lot of subcontractors and trade partners that aren't living in that prefab world, and they're not even thinking about it at that point. I see Kristen, you're on here from Whiting and Turner. You guys probably have a lot more experience in this arena, but I don't know if you guys could speak on educating these trade partners on prefabbing and how positive that can be for everybody in the end, and working together in the beginning. It's just such a speed bump with some of these subcontractors.
And it's funny, I'll let Kristen speak as well, but it's been funny. My experience is there's a lot of people who've been, they've been building buildings, it's a family-owned business. They've been building buildings the same way for 50, 100 years, and it's been working out for them. And so why change? But there's these bright spots in the industry. I've been really pleasantly surprised among the conversations I've had. There's a lot of great work happening, and it's funny. Some of these fab shops, these prefab shops, have appeared over the last 6 months, 18 months. It's been very short term, and so I think the next 2 to 3 years are going to be critical to see that change. One thing I'm trying to do, and we're very much at the early experimenting phase, where we're actually bringing a designer, a GC, and several trades across the MEP spectrum to start having these conversations and seeing if there's a portion of the project that can be done prefab. Make sure we have good metrics. That it's not going to be as effective as doing traditional stick build. I can guarantee the first experiment is going to set up to, I don't want to say set up to fail, that sounds terrible, and we're being recorded, but it's not going to be as effective as a second experiment and a third experiment, where we see that, that shift in mindset. But absolutely, I think there are some people who are very resistant to this, but there are it's been really great to see these bright spots. And some of our subs, they have a target of 10% prefab, but they're like, in the next 3 years, we'd like to see that go to 25%. Some people will be like, well, why not 80%? But little steps are gonna get us there. And Kristen, I'll let you talk a bit more about what Whiting Turner is doing as well.
Sure. Jerry, how are you?
Good.
I'm good. So, I agree with Jerry, what you were saying about commitment and decision-making. So we run into a lot of issues when it's not only commitment, but it's also time like timing of it all. So what Jerry's saying about getting designers involved and getting everybody committed to the process, if that's not there, then you are just the disruptor, and it's very quick to be shut down because you are a roadblock. Making the decision to do prefab, in my mind, is in an early phase. And Patrick, I mean, I run our virtual building department, so I'm very much so in the BIM model, lean, offsite construction, modular space. So, but it's a heavy lift to switch mindset if the train's already moving. We can find some opportunities, especially if we have a nice sized pre-con package where we can be a little more creative on what we can go after on the prefab or maybe modular side. But it really is an early decision. And what Karen's talking about, I mean, probably more buy-in on there is probably a really collaborative contract, probably like getting into a IPD light kind of space. And that would really, because then that gets everybody plugged in the same risk mind than just saying, oh, the contractor will figure out what we can prefab, or the designer or the owner wants to do it, but the designer isn't committed to it. So, you know, I think it's really just buy-in at the beginning. And like Jerry said, maybe you picked a bad client if things aren't working out, because it's really your client has to be the driver and want to do it, because your subcontractors will do it, but they're going to do it for themselves, right? They're not thinking holistically. So, I mean, I'm all on board for this whole conversation of speed and lean and removing the waste, but you have more opportunity for that when your contract type more permits it, and you have your client is the driver. That's where multifamily, when you have the repetition, is like a perfect spot for this. But it's getting but think about who your owner usually is in multifamily. They're usually just quick and fast developers sometimes, right? That aren't looking for that opportunity for your creativity. They just want it done. Don't care how it's done. Do it for cheap, kind of thing.
Sure.
And Kristen, that's actually a really important thing, because, you know, not all projects, Jerry, you might disagree with me, but not all projects are conducive to prefab. You need certain criteria, the repetitive element, to be cost competitive. You need that repetitive element. You need an owner on board. I mean, if you get down the route to, you know, by the time it gets passed on to the GC and onwards, and you know it's lukewarm, it's not going to be as effective as if everyone's on board, everyone's taking the same you know, risk reward attitude, and you have that collaborative effort. So sorry, Patrick, I think you were going to mention something.
No. I'm just glad the conversation's happening. That's all. Thank you for the responses, guys.
As Kristen was pointing out, project type is critical. Repetition is critical, and that's why multifamily makes a lot of sense. I mean, if floors 2 through 5 are identical, now you've got a chance to really industrialize the project without at all damaging or limiting the design intent of the project. One-off buildings that aren't highly repetitive we just don't even look at them. They do not fit, and it's understandable why they don't fit. We get pressed sometimes to do the one-off community building that has 0 repetition. We do our best to avoid it.
Yeah. Doesn't make business sense.
Does senior living fit into your business model as well? Would that be considered multifamily?
I'm sorry?
Oh, I'm sorry. Does senior living fit into your business model as well?
Yes, it does. It's just another type of multifamily. It's still highly repetitive. I mean, we have pursued senior living projects with Kristen's firm, Whiting Turner. We like the product, but again, if the owner isn't engaged in it, if it isn't highly repetitive, if it doesn't make industrial sense, we'll pass it by.
Patrick, I liked your Revisto question too, because Revisto is a great software, but it's given a little too much behind the curtain.
Do you use it at Whiting Turner?
Yep. Mm-hmm. We're trying to, as much as people want.
It's a growing product. I like it. I think it's great.
Yeah,
So,
it's a great, it's again, it's understanding that contractors aren't trying to be, we can also be sophisticated in how we're trying to deliver. It's not, we're just not trying to just, you know, showcase blemishes. We can bring a lot of speed
I think
to
that's a
market.
key word right there, the blemishes, right? Well, that goes back to my first question, what the design team is. I think if we're flagging stuff or asking them these questions of how is this supposed to fit, but in a nice way, I think we're kind of going at them, right? But Jerry, your setup, it just seems so ideal where you guys control so much of a scope to begin with already in the subcontracting world. But if you're sitting at the same table with the design team, you guys are pretty much the voice for so many services going in that building versus you know, so many different companies and voices chiming in together. So, but yeah, sometimes with the design team, it's
you have to develop a collaborative spirit. I mean, if it is viewed as pointing out the missions or conflicts, then it's not effective. If the spirit is let's jointly resolve this, then it works. And it's that's attitudinal, and without that, it just doesn't work. There are plenty of people in this space. Your firm, Whiting Turner, plenty of architects that recognize the need for a better way to build. And you know, that pool is growing by the day. And to the extent, you know, if at this juncture one doesn't want to join that pool, that's their problem. It's not the problem of the people that are trying to push this forward.
So I was just wondering, because I'm on the finance side of everything, so this is, you know, very new to me, and it's very fascinating. So you know, thanks for all the information today. And you make a lot of great points as far as the benefits, but are there, I guess I'm just wondering, what are like issues that you see or limitations? Because I would imagine you can only do maybe one job at a time, or, you know, there's got to be extra expenses of transporting this large material to a site, or, you know, any malfunctions that happen. I know, you know, we like to believe that, you know, our electronics are going to be good all the time. And the, you know, on the robotic side of things, I would, you know, think the majority of the time everything works out, but, you know, sometimes things crash or whatever the case may be. Like, I'm just kind of curious on that side of things, what you guys have seen.
I think that first of all, from a financing perspective, just at the broadest level, we look like traditional construction in the field. We're just faster. So their progress payments. That really is no different. Unlike volumetric modular, that sometimes has big deposits, we don't. If we're procuring a special item for the job, like the window package or the HVAC equipment, we invoice that when it's received. But that would be a traditional function of a construction lender. Do we have challenges in the plant? Yeah, we do. Sure, certainly. But it's a lot easier to correct it when it's in one place and in a controlled environment than when the plumbing sub doesn't show up for 6 days. So, you know, there are matters of mitigation in both directions. We are a big subcontractor with big scope, but we have the privilege of controlling that scope in a way that others can't. So, vendors tend to really like the certainty that we bring to the job. They know the number. They don't pay for it until it goes on the foundation. It's a very clean, understandable process. And by the way, they come to the plant and they check on us. So it's just a lot easier to do due diligence, to examine the work product. And then, as I said, you know, people don't have trouble with our frame. It is a very good build. We bring a level of quality that otherwise isn't achievable. So all those things inure to the satisfaction of the lender.
And I think to add to that, Candace, I think people, Jerry, you said, especially in the modular, full-blown volumetric modular space, people tend to price jobs as traditional stick builds. And so it seems, at the beginning of the project, there's this much higher cost outlay instead of looking at the project as a whole. And so for my experience, much newer than Jerry's, is cost certainty and schedule certainty. Again, as Jerry said, you have much more control in your one factory. You're also not going to be as subject to weather delays, to certain subs not showing up, scheduling all your different subs. So you have a much better control over your schedule and schedule delays as well. And so as Jerry pointed out, there were several projects that he mentioned that, you really go, you hit the ball out the park in terms of schedule, and then cost certainty. You don't get unexpected change orders. Well, if you're, in the one factory environment, there's not those change orders that are unexpected. We work in the field and those types of things. And so again, it's just looking at the pricing a little bit differently and looking over the life cycle of the project.
I would also say that if one thinks that the risk profile of delivering materials to the job site, taking disparate subcontractors to assemble them, if they think, if you like that risk profile, why don't you like the profile of doing it in a controlled environment where the product is brought to the project site in sub-assemblies, assembled in a much faster, predictable way. So we see, in general, lenders are advocates of what we do because it brings better certainty. As to the question of price, until we met Harkins and Whiting Turner, we thought we could price it any way we wanted. They unfortunately brought a different view of the world to us, so we have to market. I mean, it's, is there a premium for our product? Are we the lowest guy in town? Certainly not. Do we understand what we think we do? And we've been able to do business with people who really do understand costs. So I think that is in its own way.
Agreed. Jerry, how's your, I haven't been to your shop in maybe about a year and a half or so. Did you fit it all out now? I know that there's a couple of bays that were left open. Are you fully fit out in there? And what's your backlog? What's your schedule? How far back are you planned?
So yeah, the plant, we've gone through it, as you guys know, we've gone through several iterations of what is the product, and focus is clearly multifamily, with more sophisticated GCs and builder owners. So it is now completely conformed to that operation. Our backlog is a particularly interesting topic in this environment, and it's as big as it's ever been. I mean, it's now north of 50 million in a 12-month cycle, the rolling 12. We don't have difficulty convincing anybody of the need to find a better method.
Yeah.
The challenge is finding the right partners, finding the right customers, as you pointed out.
I agree with you there. Cool, thank you.
I wanted to touch a little bit on, we talked about this yesterday in our prep call, and I know there's a lot of people on the call that are involved, but I wanted to talk to you guys just a little bit about workforce development. I know, Karen, you're very involved in workforce development and actually had reached out. So maybe Karen and Patrick could, if you guys want to collaborate. Karen had asked me a few months back before everything got shut down regarding subcontractors that would be open to the prefab and the lean practice that we could list to her, because I know there was a plan to get everybody together, which isn't happening right now. But there should be maybe some coordination there. But I know Jerry and Karen Kristen from Whiting Turner, and I know Karen Pecoraro are very heavily involved in developing the workforce, within, we're in Baltimore City mainly, so within Baltimore City and the surrounding. Do you want to touch on what you're doing and what the future looks like?
How long do you guys have? Because I could talk to you about this until next Tuesday.
We have 10 minutes.
11 minutes. I got 11 minutes for you.
So it's a great question. Obviously, it's something I'm really passionate around, and that's really where I think my lean experience comes in. There's two things very broadly I'm working on. So Patrick, exactly that, working with trades up, trying to change their mentality from project to project to actually have that more industrialized mindset to product. Once they have a product, you open the world of the possibilities instead of focusing project, and doing, not thinking about it more from the industrialized standpoint. So I am doing, we're looking both at the individual trade level and then bringing different trades together to help them change their mindset. And then the other thing I'm working on, and this is very much at the conceptual stage, I've talked to Jerry about this actually. I've talked about, everyone on the phone knows about this, but seeing what are the gaps with high school education, community colleges, higher ed in general, in terms of giving that integrated education to students. So, kids come out of an apprenticeship program, they know how to be a plumber, or kids come out of high school and they start off on the shop floor and move up, but it doesn't seem like there's this integrated way of thinking, and actually industrialized way of thinking, to really get exposure to the whole building life cycle. So I'm working with ABC, MCCEI, different high schools to figure out what that program might look like and what are the gaps and how we can fit in those gaps.
I agree with the trade partners and working with younger adults getting out of high school. I came through ABC and got my journeyman's license, so that was my experience in the field and learning all that stuff. And now that turned into a passion of taking my knowledge of learning where the technology has taken us and going back. And I sit on the Education Trust Board with Chesapeake Shores, so I try to help out with the apprenticeship program there, and what can we educate them. And I know when I went through, we learned how to build stuff. I learned how to design an HVAC system, but just what's happening in the industry right now. And I think one thing that might happen, maybe it won't happen, but I think there's a lot of younger people that got into the trades within the past 5, 6, 7 years that are now getting promoted to management roles where they're starting to have more of a say on technology and different processes in their company. And then the older crews maybe are on their way out, right? So maybe there will be a shift now, and it won't be as much pushback because these younger generations are getting these executive and management positions, and we can help. We're all here. We all clearly have some kind of passion there. We're all on board with that to help push it along even more. And Karen, I like your idea of just educating subcontractors on what's going on too. I've been trying to figure out a way myself with the subs that we work with. What can I do to educate them on, hey, we're doing this over here at Harkins, but we want you along on the ride with us too. You're working with us. So, and it's been tough, but maybe I can pick your brain about it sometime too.
I would love that. And it's, as I said, I think it's really finding those bright spots and showing quantitatively showing how it's benefited them as a company, and it's not only monetary, it's how the workforce has changed, how these younger folks have brought in those ideas and been able to pivot the industry a little bit. And that's what I really want to, I think if we do get kids, younger folk coming in and then bringing their new ideas, bringing this innovation, it puts them in a great position as they start their, they start their career. So, yeah, I would love to talk to you more about that, Patrick.
Great, yeah.
Help if I unmuted myself. Any other last minute questions? We have a few minutes left. All right, well, I'll give you those few minutes back in your day. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you very much, Karen and Jerry, for taking time out of your day. Patrick, for all of your input. That was great. All right, so we have, I'm not sure of the exact date, Kristen Ernst, maybe you can help me out. You're going to do a virtual conversation over coffee in the virtual space. Do you have a date yet?
I think I owe that to Kelsey.
Okay.
I don't know yet.
It'll be in the net. It'll be one of our Tuesday conversation over coffees within the month of August. So look forward to that to come up. And the big event that we actually have coming up in person, which I'd love to see you guys at, is our golf tournament, which is scheduled for October 1st. Speaking of my sister's place and other philanthropic efforts within Baltimore, all of the funds raised from that golf tournament do go towards our philanthropic efforts to help with, workforce development and other like University of Baltimore, my sister's place, that it's our direct contribution back to the communities that we live in. So please look out for that. There are still some sponsorship opportunities available, but registration's open. If you have any questions on that, please feel to reach out. Again, October 1st at Diamond Ridge Golf Course. So. All right. Well, I'm sure I will see you on screen soon. Thank you so much.